Well, good morning. Scott Mingus, Neil McLeod, once again with you, Fractional Exec. Welcome to a three-part series. We're going to talk to Neil today about a process that he went through with N8N. So we work a lot with our clients to automate their processes and identifying areas of opportunity to do pilots and then move that into production in companies. And one of the tools that we use is N8N. And so we want to take him through that. So good morning, Neil.
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, we both actually took a class last summer on workflow automation and leveraging the tools, and N8N just happened to be the one in that class. And it kept kind of going around in my head, like what could we best use this for and how could we leverage it? Like workflow automation started to become more and more common, and how people can best leverage agentic AI or AI agents as they started to become more and more prominent last year.
I think that's a great place to jump in. So how did you kind of, cut through the AI hype and how'd you go through the identification process of what you wanted to automate?
I think for me, it was where are my pain points and what did I feel like was the most urgent and pervasive need for us? You and I spend a lot of time across the board doing business development, thinking about sales and marketing, thinking about operations, thinking for us about onboarding clients and onboarding community members. And through all of those thoughts and conversations, we sat down and had some discussions around some of the things that we could be better at. And one of those things for me was really being more consistent around sales and marketing activity and summarizing information so we don't lose track of all of the opportunities that are in our pipeline. So if you think about that, it sounds very similar to a CRM, but I was thinking more from a marketing lens than a sales lens, and that's how I got started.
Awesome. Well, so I think that's an example of, within our own business and the thought process that you went through. Now, the clients that we've been working with, they, are much larger scale than what we are. So talk a little bit about your process of taking a client through on when they look at what can I automate, what tools, et cetera. So talk a little bit about that discovery process.
Yeah, I mean, I rely on the scientific method. I start with qualitative conversations. So, senior leadership, typically, people in the C-suite will have several discussions one-on-one with those folks to ask them about a day in their life and some opportunities that they see where workflow automation would be beneficial for them. And if you do that independently, you tend to get really interesting and unique perspectives because people in the COO seat think differently than those that are in the CFO seats, or sales leadership thinks differently than the CEO does. So it's really interesting to get those unique perspectives, and it's much easier to do so one-on-one. And so we start there, we get thematic information from them and start to understand where the opportunities lie, because thematic means, oh, I'm hearing this consistently across different groups. So if you're hearing one thing that's common, that's a great place to start. It's a great pain point or opportunity where everybody benefits from it and sees value that comes from it. And then you can quantify that too. So after you start to generate themes in one-on-one interviews, you can bring groups back together and have discussions around that to make sure everybody's on the same page. Or you could literally survey a larger group and say, hey, this is what we heard. Can you rank these for me? And that quantified validation step helps you to prioritize as well on the things that are going to drive the most value for a business.
Excellent. I mean, that is truly one of my favorite parts of the process that we use is that light bulb moment when you bring everybody back together and you talk about the diversity of lens or perspective of where they're at with AI, how to use it, where would be the best position to use it. It really is that important part where you start aligning the leadership team. And then as you drill down and do that same exercise without into the organization, then you learn how disjointed maybe the leadership view is from what's actually happening in the culture. So very powerful piece of the process for us and really tremendous value for our clients as well. So probably the next thing, okay, now you've identified those areas that you want to consider for pilots or for automation. How do you establish the KPIs? That's the big thing. How do you get an ROI from these projects and from the investment in AI? How do you go through that process?
Yeah, very similar. Understanding what the business does today. So how do they evaluate success? How do they measure success today? And make sure that's all documented, brought together. Look at what reports they generally are reviewing on a weekly or a monthly basis, and then think about those in a group setting and talk to the team leaders or the C-suite about which one of those are the highest priority, which one of those are thought about most frequently, which one of those are going to be leveraged within the organization. And the most common leverage points are the ones that you want to focus on. Okay, this is how we measure success. And for you and I, it might be how many conversations did we have this week with potential community members, or how far down the sales funnel are our prospects, and how many existing client engagements do we have in flight right now. And so those kinds of things are metrics that help us determine what do we need to do to improve the number of calls that we have with potential members, or what do we need to do to increase the acceleration of funnel activity with potential clients and existing clients. Obviously, you want to kind of balance the activity between, working within an engagement and doing the business development necessary to make sure your pipeline's full. So those types of metrics kind of bubbled up for us, and similar things happen when you have conversations with clients. What's most important to them. And you and I talked to an insurance company. For them, it's a totally different story. Their key metrics are more focused on if they have margin health in the policies that they're signing their customers up with, and making sure that they've got a good balance of customers as well. So they're diversifying their portfolio. So it's interesting and different for each business type.
That's awesome. Well, listen, that's all the time that we have for this segment. I want to invite everybody to follow along. Make sure you see segment 2 and segment 3 so you get the full life cycle of the N8N project that we're talking about today. So thank you, Neil, for your expertise and your time today, and I'll look forward to talking again in segment 2.
Sounds great. Thanks, Scott.